Hey everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we haven't done a comparison of the major streaming box platforms in a while, so today we are going to do just that. I've got 4 of the major streamers here booted up and running. That includes the Fire TV, an OnBox, which is powered by Google's TV operating system. We've got the Apple TV over here, and a Roku. And all of them are currently running side by side. This was actually more complex to set up than I thought it would be. And in this video, we're going to do an overview of all 4 of these platforms so you can see them running pretty much right next to each other so you can get a feel as to what might meet your particular needs. I'm going to try to avoid making a singular recommendation here. I've done detailed reviews about all of these different platforms, and my goal here is just to give you a good overview of how each of these works and how they differ, because at the end of the day, they all run the same apps, so why choose one over the other? And hopefully this will help you make that decision. Now, today's video is being brought to you by Plex. Plex is a great media platform. They began as a way for enthusiasts to host their own media in the home. It's a feature that still exists within Plex, but over the last couple of years, they've been expanding beyond just the enthusiast market, and now they offer a lot of free streaming content, both on demand and live. They also have some really great features for managing the things that you want to watch across every platform. And Plex really fills in a hole that is missing on many of these platforms. And we'll do a demo of that feature of Plex when we get a little further into the video here. However, Plex did not review or approve what you're about to see before it was uploaded. Now, I paid for most of these TV boxes with my own funds, with the exception being the Roku Ultra here. This was provided free of charge by Roku. However, they are not reviewing or approving what you're about to see either. So let's get into it now and see how these TV boxes differ from each other. So why don't we start off here with the Apple TV. As you can see, the interface here is pretty clean. We just see our apps here on the home screen. Now, one of the neat tricks about the Apple TV is that whatever app is in this spot right here will basically command what you see behind it. So what I've done here, because I'm pretty much integrated into the Apple ecosystem, is I put the Apple Photos app in this spot. So every time I boot my box up, I don't see advertising, but I see my pictures from my photo library, and these change all the time. The app curates different pictures and different groups of pictures, so you always see something different here. Now, normally when you boot one of these up, Apple usually puts one of its apps in that spot, so you will see some advertising for the Apple TV Plus subscription service here. But again, you can just rearrange things and get rid of that. And most of the apps will have something that goes up here, and it will vary based on what that application calls for. But for the most part here, you don't see much advertising. However, the Apple TV is the most expensive box of the mix here. So they do have some profit margin built into the hardware sale, which means they rely less on all the other stuff for trying to make back some of what the cost of production is on the hardware. So let's move on now to Roku. Roku is actually the market pioneer in this area. Their first player came out in 2008. I think I still have mine upstairs. And what I love about Roku is that, by and large, the interface is still very familiar to what I remember that original box having. However, the ads are starting to creep in now. So we've got this advertising section here. We've got a bunch of curated content that's showing up at the top of the menu, but it's very easy to scroll past that and just jump into the apps if that's how you prefer to navigate the interface. Most of the Roku players are very affordable. They rely on these advertisements and their streaming services, most of which are free, to make up some of the revenue that they lose on the hardware sales. So you will see a lot of ads peppered throughout the interface, but it's not as bad as the other inexpensive players that we will be looking at next. They do have a great live TV feature. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And you'll start to see now some of these curated seasonal sections here, like Stream and Scream. I'm actually shooting this video on Halloween, and so there's a bunch of curated content here, some of which is paid to be placed in front of you. But again, if you go back to home, you can get a pretty clean interface to navigate through your favorite apps. All right, let's take a look now at the Fire TV. Things are going to start to get a little busier on our display here. So right now I'm on the home screen of my Fire TV. This, of course, is an Amazon product, so you log in with your Amazon account. If you have an Amazon Prime account, there is a lot of free content that you will get in addition to the other applications, but a lot of that free content now does have some advertising attached to it. So as you can see here, I'm being pitched some Subway subs here. This advertising section will always be changing. As I scroll down, you can see there's a lot of other advertisements and recommendations kind of mixed into the interface here. You do get, at the top of the screen here, a bank of 6 frequently used applications. You can decide what goes into this bank here, but if you wanted to go beyond the 6, you have to push this button here, and then it will show you everything else that's installed on your device. So it's a little more difficult to navigate to the things that you want here, and that's because these boxes are heavily subsidized, and Amazon is really trying to get you to buy and watch content that they provide. So there you go. That is your Fire TV interface. And we're going to be diving a little deeper into each of these in a minute. All right, so let's move on now to Google TV. Again, we're running this on an on box that you'll find at Walmart, but other Google TV devices look and run exactly the same. So here's the home screen. Once again, we've got a lot of advertisements here front and center. There's a Disney Plus ad. This will rotate. Sometimes it'll play some video behind it as well. And then as we scroll down here, you'll see top picks for you. And one of the neat things about Google TV, which may or may not be creepy, is that Google takes all that it knows about you and recommends content to you based on that. And so you'll see recommendations like this movie on Apple TV for one of the Peanuts movies. Here's another Apple TV recommendation. Here's a YouTube video that it thinks I might like to watch. It's actually recommending one of my own videos to me, which is kind of funny. And it will try its best to find things that interest you. I'm going to talk about user profiles in a minute, because if you're not diligent about making sure each family member logs into the box before they start watching stuff, your recommendations are going to get all screwed up. And that's a problem across many platforms. One other issue with the Google recommendation engine here is that it doesn't work with all the different streaming apps out there. So you may not see Netflix content in here, for example. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, you'll see all of our apps that we have installed. They do give you a good number to scroll through, and you can reorder this list as well. So that's nice that it's at least a little lengthier than what I've seen from the Amazon side of things. And this is actually an improvement, because in the past, Google didn't give you as much application space as they do now. Below that, you've got more and more recommendations and some advertisements and all the other stuff that you typically see. And this will scroll on forever here. So you will be able to find something to watch, and it's kind of neat to see the differences in how each platform is approaching their interface. Apple is very much app-centric. Google is trying to do a little bit of recommendations along with other content to suggest. Amazon Fire TV is also very content-focused, and Roku's trying to do a mix of the two. Now, what about watching free content? Well, each of these handles free content in different ways. We'll start with the Apple TV, because this one doesn't have much of a free section at all. You can, of course, install Pluto TV or Plex, the sponsor of this video, to get some free stuff. We'll look at how Plex works in a minute. But by and large, Apple doesn't really have a free section for you to explore for finding things to watch without having to pay for a subscription. But the story is very different on all of these other platforms. Let's take a look at Roku now. Now, you will find free stuff in a number of places on the Roku here. The first is in the live TV section here, where you can jump in and get a full channel guide and a bunch of streaming channels. You can also jump to specific things through their recommendations here. All of this stuff is free. You don't have to pay for any of it, but they are, of course, supported by advertisements. Below that, you've got something here called Featured Free. And this has even more free content. Some of it is streaming, but most of it is on demand. So you can find additional things here. So you can buy one of these $25 Rokus and never have to pay for anything else ever again. And in addition to all the stuff that Roku is providing you through their platform, you can still get all of the other stuff like Plex and Pluto and other services that you can stream free content on. Roku also has something here called the Roku channel. This actually works across platform, where you can also find additional free content, although a lot of this now is baked into the interface. So Roku has quite a bit of free stuff, and you just have to navigate to those two sections of the menu to get it. Now on the Fire TV, you've got a couple of different options for free stuff like we saw on the Roku. One of them is the live TV section here. So if I just click over to this section, you can see a bunch of stuff down here that we can stream for free, along with some advertisements as well. So if I go over here to guide, what this will do is pull up a channel guide. This is very similar to what you will see on Roku and some of the other platforms we'll talk about in a minute. And I want to make clear that all of these free streaming channels are not the same as what you would get from your cable provider. Additionally, you might see local TV affiliates here, but mostly these are local news only. You're not going to get what they're typically broadcasting. So if you want the full cable TV experience, you do need to pay a subscription fee to your cable company or to YouTube TV or Hulu or one of their competitors. These are not the same, although you've got endless amounts of content here. Most of them a lot of fun reruns, and again, a lot of local news here as well. And this goes on and on and on. There is so much here that you can watch without having to pay a dime. Another thing they have is something called Fire TV Channels. This is an app that you'll pull up here. And again, this doesn't require a Prime subscription. And here you've got a bunch of live stuff, video clips, and other things that you can navigate through. You can click on news, for example, and see some of the live streaming channels along with news packages from a bunch of local and national affiliates here. So lots of free content here. Again, all advertisers supported. So you will see a bunch of ads, but you don't have to pay any ongoing subscription fees to see it. And finally, Google TV does now have some free stuff integrated into the operating system under the live section here. And if we scroll down, you can see that Google TV Free Play, which is their free service offering, has a bunch of these streaming channels. Again, many of the same channels you'll see on the other platforms that are built into the operating system here. Additionally, they also support some of the other free streaming apps that are out there, and those will get integrated into the channel guide as well. But it doesn't look like Google TV has any free on-demand content at the moment. And this is a good segue to this video's sponsor, Plex. They have one of the most extensive free libraries available through the Plex app, and that app runs across all of these different platforms, including many smart TV platforms too. There's a good chance you've got something on your television that can run Plex. They've got over 600 live streaming channels with more added all the time. I've done some videos about how you can organize this because there is just so much here. And in addition to all of that streaming content, they have a very large library of on-demand TV shows and movies. Again, all free and advertiser supported. They've got a bunch of shows that I remember from the 80s. Can you believe it's been 40 years since V was first on the air in 1984? But you can jump in and watch it all over again. I was a second grader when that came out. They even got the Max Headroom show here from 1987, and it just goes on and on and on. There is so much here to watch, and they also have movie rentals now too. Plex also has one of the most extensive universal searches available in the industry. You can search for just about any TV show. It will likely have a record of it, and it will tell you where you can watch it. So here's an old show from the 90s called Earth Final Conflict. We can watch it free from Plex or Amazon or Freevee or the Roku channel. I can also add this to my watch list, which works like a to-do list of the things that you want to watch. And you can very easily keep track of where you are in all of your favorite shows and figure out where to watch those shows from just about any device. You can even do the search on a phone using the Plex mobile app, and it will sync up to all of your devices. And optionally, you can get all your friends in on the action too. You can share ratings and also share what you are watching so you can discover stuff from your circle of friends. And the best part is that all of this is 100% free, and it runs on everything, including all of the TV boxes we have here on the desk. So a big thank you to Plex for their long-standing support of the channel. And now let's get back to the comparison. So now let's take a look and see how all of these different devices can work with different members of your household. We're going to start with the adults, and then we'll look at how each device can cater itself to children and family programming. Right now, the Roku does not offer multiple logins, so the Roku account you set up will be the Roku account for your household. But Roku generally doesn't do all that much in the way of personalized recommendations. We're starting to see a little bit of it there, so I would imagine over time we might see Roku add the option to log in different members of the household so your recommendations don't get mixed up. Let's take a look now, though, at the Google box, because this one obviously has the most at stake when it comes to multiple users. Now, one of the things you will find on Google TV boxes is a person button here. So what you need to do is train your members of the family that when they sit down to watch something with the Google TV, that they push the button and switch the user. And the reason is that if they don't do this, you're going to have your recommendations totally messed up. So in this example, I've got me, I've got another user, and I've got a kid. So what you really want to do is get your family members trained that when they sit down, they got to go in and push the button and select their username so that the recommendations can be maintained. And you'll see here that this user has a different set of recommendations than I have on my account. And again, on Google, because recommendations are so critical to the interface, this is something I think you may want to enforce in the household, especially if you find these recommendations useful. It will also change up the interface so you can have different favorite apps depending on the user, but they all share, of course, the same storage on the device for those applications. Let's take a look now at how the Fire TV handles things. Now, on the Fire TV, I found the quickest way to switch user profiles is to hit the settings button on the remote. Likewise, you can go over to this icon and select the profile option from there, and then you can switch around. Let me hit the button here so you can see what this looks like. If I go to Profiles, I can then get the list of who's been programmed into this device. I can select my wife's profile here, for example, and switch over to her. I think over time we're going to see personalized recommendations become more and more important. So again, on the Fire TV, you'll probably want to train your family members to switch profiles as you are jumping back and forth to keep those recommendations up to date and accurate. Let's take a look now at how the Apple TV handles things. Now on the Apple TV, what you're going to do is hold down this button here, and your settings menu will pop up. What you need to do is click to the right to go over to the icon for your user. And when you do that, you will see other users that are in your family account. So they do collect all the names for you. You do have to log them in using their personal devices or passwords, but they're all here to get started with. And earlier I did get my daughter's account set up. And if I click on her, you'll see that nothing really happened here beyond the fact that it shows her up in the upper right-hand corner. So everything is in the same place that I left it under my username, but there are some things like parental controls and other things now that will take over for her. Additionally, what they have on the Apple TV side is an app called Apple TV. Now, this is different than the service they offer called Apple TV Plus. And what Apple TV does is that it works with a select number of streaming applications to keep track of what you are watching. So what will happen is through your Apple TV app on your phone is that you will get notifications when one of your favorite shows, if it's supported, gets a new episode added, for example. It will also keep track of the things that you are watching. So if you are not making use of separate users on your Apple TV, those things get all messed up here. So that is one reason why you'll want to do that. But one of the issues that I have here with the Apple TV, and this is something that is prevalent across all the different applications, is that Apple TV doesn't keep track of what you're watching in Netflix, for example. So it's not quite universal, but there are a number of apps that are supported by it. And if you are logging in with different users, everyone will get better tracking of what they are watching. Without that, you will start seeing notifications for things that you're not watching. So for example, my wife never logs in with her account, and every time a new episode of that show with the people on the yacht gets uploaded to whatever streaming service she's watching on, I get the notification. It drives me crazy. So again, you'll want to make sure your family members are logging in properly. Now let's take a look at what each platform offers for kids, and we'll start with the Apple TV while we have it booted up. Now, as you saw a minute ago, when we switched into my daughter's account on the Apple TV, it didn't switch to a kid's interface. What the Apple TV does is it relies upon restrictions that you can set inside of the settings menu. You find them by going over here to General and then going over to Restrictions. Now, right now I have them set to off, and the reason is that this is universal. So if I turn this on right now, her iPad suddenly stops working the way she likes it to work because I didn't set things up properly on there. So there's consequences across your Apple ecosystem here because Ellie is in my family account. And when I turned this on, it actually blocked Roblox on her iPad, which was probably not a bad thing. In any event, what I've got here are some rules set up. So for example, my account is set to bypass all of the parental restrictions, but Ellie's account is set to block, which means that all of these restrictions that we've set down here will apply to her account. So right now, the way it's set up, and again, you can jump in and change all this stuff, is that she can only listen to clean music and podcasts. She can watch music videos. She can see music profiles, but I can block all these things. I could set movies to only show her things that are rated G or PG. I have her TV shows set to TV PG. I can have her apps limited to apps that are only designed for kids. I can have Siri block certain types of language, and it goes on and on and on here, as you can see. A lot of these settings, though, do not apply to individual applications, though, that she might have access to. So you do have to go into each app and just make sure you've got the parental controls set up properly in there. She also cannot switch back to my profile without a PIN code. So there are some ways to restrict what the kid can do on here, but just know that it becomes a universal thing that will also apply to their other devices. Let's take a look now at Fire TV. So this is a kid's profile on the Fire TV. You'll see this looks a lot different than the adult profile. We don't have ads everywhere, which is kind of refreshing. And you'll see here that I did bring over a few apps that I have installed on the adult side of the unit. This is the exact same Fire TV we were just looking at. Now you can add more apps through this little application here. The parent does have to type in a password, a PIN code, in order to go in and select which apps appear on screen. Now I did bring over Disney Plus, and one thing you need to make sure about on the Disney Plus side is that you have all of your parental controls set up inside of the app, because it won't police things going on inside of these applications. I also have PBS Kids that I can download, a game here that she can play, and Disney Now. One thing that you will see, though, as we scroll down is that there's a lot of content here with locks on it. And that's because even if you have a Prime account, to get all of this kid content, you have to pay more. So they have this service called Amazon Kids Plus. It costs about $6 a month if you are a Prime subscriber. It costs more if you are not. And that will unlock all this kids content. I can't find a way to get rid of all these locked out things here. So no doubt if you do set up one of these kids' profiles, they will be asking constantly for you to go in and try to unlock some of this stuff. The good news is that they can't unlock it without a PIN code that you know. So it's not going to be something the kid will accidentally subscribe to, but just know that this is very much geared to getting your kid to get you to pay more money to subscribe. But nonetheless, you can set up a couple of apps on here, and you can be very certain that they can't wander out of this interface into something inappropriate. Now, the Google TV, I think, has the best kids interface out of all of these platforms. It looks a lot like the Amazon one in that you do get a separate interface designed just for kids, and you can choose which apps they have access to. So right now, my kids got access to PBS Kids, the Cartoon Network, and YouTube Kids. I can add other apps that I've installed on the adult side of the platform here to the menu list if I want. Again, you got to set the parental controls, though, in each to make sure they're protected. The kid cannot just jump in here, though, and add their own. There's a PIN required to log back in as the adult to make those changes. What I really like about the Google Kids interface, though, is that everything here she can watch for free without having to subscribe to anything. So there is no upsell here. The kid's not going to be coming to you asking for the padlock to get removed. They can watch all of this stuff. They've got songs. They can explore some different things here, and it's generally all pretty safe for kids. They can also jump in here and customize their interface. It's very limited as to what they can customize, but they have a couple of different themes here that rotate every couple of months, and they can also go in and change their profile picture if they want as well without the adult's involvement. They can try to switch accounts, but if they do, they will be presented with a PIN code to jump out of the kid's interface. So all in, I think the Google interface is the best. Let's take a look at the Roku now, which is incredibly limited, unfortunately, for options for kids in the household. Now, Roku has a great kids channel here called the Roku channel Kids and Family. They've got great content that's very recognizable here, but they don't have any real controls over anything else. So for example, if you set this up for your kid, if they hit the home button, they're right back to the home screen where they can jump into something else. So you're going to need to make sure that all of your apps are locked down insofar as their parental controls are concerned, because there are no separate profiles on Roku devices, and therefore it doesn't know that it's a kid watching. And unfortunately, it does not appear that they have an option to lock this app down with a PIN code to keep them locked into it and nothing else. So just be aware of that. Roku is a little less restrictive. They do have the ability to require PIN codes on Roku channel programming that meets certain rating levels. So for example, you could say nothing beyond TV PG, but that again doesn't restrict the child from going over to Netflix and watching something there. So unfortunately, Roku, although they've got a great kids app, doesn't have any option for kid profiles. So there you go, 4 different TV boxes and how they compare. Hopefully this video was helpful to you. Once you dive into your favorite apps, of course, these all work the same, but they are very different on the outside when you are interacting with the interface and some of the built-in apps that each platform has. Now, if you are shopping for a TV box and maybe narrowed it down to one particular type, you'll note that at least in the case of the Roku, the Google TV, and the Fire TV, you've got a lot of choices within that platform. For the most part, if you've got an old TV that you're trying to hook things up to that's maybe only 1080p, or it's a 4K TV that doesn't support HDR modes, going with the lower cost option is usually a good idea. You're not going to have any real benefit to a higher end box on an old television, but if you do have a 4K television that supports all the fancy HDR modes, I would look to make sure that the box that you pick supports Dolby Atmos and Dolby Vision HDR. Generally, those will support everything your TV will support, and you'll get the best quality and experience out of it. The Apple TV only offers really one version of their product. There are 2 different storage levels. I have the larger storage unit that also has a Ethernet option on board, but beyond that, both versions of the Apple TV perform the same. Now, one thing you'll note is that I didn't talk about gaming in this episode, and that's because although there are games on all of these platforms, even some limited games on the Roku, gaming is not the focus for any of these. And although Apple is trying the hardest, I think, to bring more games to their device, most of them are ports that come over from the iPad and the iPhone. There is a lot more potential, I think, for gaming with the Apple TV than the other platforms, because Apple really is trying harder to turn this into a more universal living room device, but the games just still aren't there just yet. So if gaming is important to you and you can only afford to buy one thing, I would look at an Xbox or a PlayStation, as both of those devices not only have games, but also most of the streaming apps. Nintendo Switch is also a good choice. They do have some streaming apps available on that platform too. And of course, the games are a lot better on those. But if you're just looking to stream TV, you've got 4 options here, and hopefully this video was helpful in helping you make a decision. If it wasn't, leave me a comment and I'll do a follow-up video to answer more questions specifically. Additionally, I have reviewed all of these things in the past, so if you want a deeper dive into each platform, check the playlist that I have linked in the video description to get very detailed reviews on each of these devices. That's going to do it for this one. Until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching.